YouTube? Thanks for checking out RV Daydream. It is a glorious day outside, and I'm going to try to cover what happened just a couple days ago, actually yesterday and the day before. So let's talk about that.
What have you been up to?
I've been riding on a daydream.
It's just before noon and we're at 84 degrees. We're going to be at 87 today, and we really don't have rain in the forecast. A little bit humid, but not as high as I'd like it. So why are we walking to this RV? Well, it's because I had sort of some issues going on, and I had some new product that I alluded to on our Facebook page. And it's 87 degrees already inside. We're going to cool this thing off, and the way we're going to do it is with a generator that I picked up. I shot some video the other day. Whenever I went through and started editing it, it just was way too long. So I'm going to try to condense this down to give you as much information and as much observation as I can. So I'm going to be reverting to other video that I shot previously to this one, but overall it should cover everything you need to know about a generator that we picked up. All right, so here it is. This is the dual fuel generator, meaning it runs on propane and on gasoline. And I went ahead and got a couple tanks of propane. I'm going to try it out, run it, and see how it operates. This is going to help us out whenever we go full time, because obviously carrying around gasoline is probably not the easiest thing to do, although it's not the hardest thing to do. But I would rather operate off propane if I can, for the time being, and that may change. I've said that plenty of times. Stuff may change. Now, the box is a little worse for wear, but it did arrive in 2 days, shipped for free. I'm putting the link down below for this. This will get you this exact generator, and this should run the air conditioner on this RV, no problems, which we're going to test. And as I did in a previous video, talk about generators, I'll put a link up above here somewhere. You can click the link. I talked about how 2 generators versus 1 generator, you know, it's still a possibility. I would rather have 1 engine, 1 generator, 1 piece of equipment, 1 problem, 1 issue, 1 security concern, 1 securement, 1 mounting, all that stuff, by going with 1 generator. But again, in the future we may run 2, and we may run 2 smaller, especially if we find we're not running our air conditioner as much. Oh, wow, this is packaged very well, a lot better than I thought. All right, so you got to start up. Wow, manual. I mean, this is thick. Has the serial number on here. That's always nice. That makes it easier for registration. And of course, there's a quick start guide. I'm not going to look at that right now. They give you a funnel. Wow, that's nice. They also give you a little USB plug, so you can plug it in the cigarette lighter port of the generator, and you can charge your USB devices. Nice added touch. The funnel, I didn't expect that, to tell you the truth. And let's see what we got here. Okay, so this is going to be the regulator for the propane. Also, you get some sort of a propane mounting setup to where that regulator can mount onto this. Okay, so now at this point, all I've got left is the packaging and the generator itself. Again, it looks like it's packed pretty well. I'm not going to be able to lift it out of this box at the height that it's at, so I'm going to put it on the ground and then place it back up here. Like I said, this thing is heavy. It is not light. I don't see any scratches or cracks. This is something that you should do when you get it. Just look at all the plastic. Look for a crack. Looks good underneath here. Doesn't look like it's been dropped. These are rubber. That's nice. Help with vibration. This is a rubber also, and it is pretty soft. I don't know if you can tell, but I can actually probably peel this off. That's nice. Help with vibration again. Just for you guys that aren't mechanically savvy as I am, maybe I'll get the quick start guide out and show you what the steps are that you need to take, so you don't accidentally overlook something that I might be looking at but not talking about. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. All right, big, huge, easy to read, and as far as being two-sided, one side Spanish. Of course, we're going to go to the English. First thing it says is place a generator on a flat level surface and remove the back panel, and basically to fill the oil. This is going to be a 10W30 oil. Now, I will have to say, being a mechanic,
you can run 10W30 synthetic. However, for your first oil change, for your break-in period, you want to run just standard 10W30 oil. Nothing synthetic blend, just a plain Jane standard 1030 oil. And the reason is because the engine needs to see certain temperatures and it needs to see certain friction so everything can break in correctly. Once the break-in period's done and all the metal shavings from the break-in are in the oil, you can get rid of that old oil, and then at that point you can go ahead and put in some good synthetic if you'd like. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Seeing that we have the exhaust on this side, and then we have most likely the battery on this side, that means the oil is going to be accessed through this panel here. And you can even see it's showing here the information as far as the panel and what it looks like. So let me go ahead and get a screwdriver and pull this apart. Pretty simple. Now, you don't have to have a power screwdriver. It's just the way I do things. Makes things a little bit quicker for me. And we'll get that to pop out. And you can see this is all insulated and padded, which it should be because it's all about keeping the sound down. That's why there's a cabinet here. Now, as far as the oil and changing the oil, my truck is on a little bit of an incline, so I'm going to level out the generator to make sure that it's, you know, just like they say, level. Because when you do the oil, when you change the oil or add the oil, you're going to be adding it into an area that, you know, you can make an easy mistake just by having it tilted a little bit. If this thing was tilted a little bit too far down one way, you know, the oil would run out instead of go into the engine like it should. And if you have it tipped the other way, you could overfill it, even though it looks like that it would be full. Now, as far as the oil being the correct level, there's a full mark that's on here. And basically what you do is you want to fill it to where the oil level, because this plug goes in at an angle in the engine, the oil just gets to the bottom of the threads that this is attached to. So basically it's going to go right up into this area, but it's going to actually be at an angle. Again, this is at an angle, so when you fill it, it's going to fill it up to right about here. All right, so on these small engines, they pretty much all take the same amount as what your push mower takes. Anything that is a single cylinder, whether it be horizontal shaft or vertical shaft like a push mower, most of them take just over half a quart. About 3/4 of a quart, not quite. They actually say it's 0.6 liters or 0.6 quarts. Just be aware that whenever you're getting close to above half, you got to watch, because the oil's going to start coming out at that point of this hole, because there's nothing to keep it in there. Also, remember, you have a funnel that might be full of oil too. So what you need to do is pour in, wait a couple seconds, pour in, wait a couple seconds, just to make sure that what you poured in and is in the funnel gets into the engine, and hopefully it doesn't cause it to overflow. Now, what I've done in this case is I went ahead and cut a small dish to put underneath this little ramp. But this thing has a couple of different stages of ramps, and that's kind of what these are. This is a rubber funnel, I guess you could say. So when the oil does come out of this dipstick by accident, because you're going to probably overfill a little bit, it'll run down this into this part here onto this little area, and then it will run out of the engine compartment. And again, I've got a cup here. I'm also going to take paper towels that are very absorbent. I'm going to put them in this area so I don't have oil sitting inside there. My problem is I only have a little bit of normal oil, so I had to run over to the parts store there, or walk over to the parts store and buy myself another quart. All the years that I was a small engine technician, one of the seminars that I went to for Briggs & Stratton and their generators, their older generators, not an inverter, but just an old generator. It was actually a generator school that I attended in Columbus. They said that as far as the consumption of oil is concerned, you can basically count on maybe an ounce of oil being burned an hour, and that's considered normal before there's an issue with the engine, saying that the engine's old or the rings are wore or anything like that. So whenever you get an extended gas tank kit or anything like that for your generators, make sure that you realize that it's still burning oil and it's still using oil, and that you may have to get and put oil in it or change oil even though you have plenty of gas to keep it going. So make sure you check your oil a lot. That's why they make it so easy. I mean, you've seen just a couple of screws and then that dipstick's taken out by hand. They want you to be able to check your oil regularly to make sure that it's not going to be an issue. You know, these engines usually have low oil shutoff switches to them. Sometimes they fail and the engine will lock up because of it. So don't count on that. Don't say, oh, it's got a low engine oil shutoff system. If it gets too low oil, it'll shut off. I've seen plenty that did not do that, and from reputable generator makers also. So something you need to be aware of. It's at the bottom of the thread, so right now it looks pretty darn good. Let's go ahead and make sure this dipstick is clean. Looks pretty clean. And we'll go ahead and put this in. Now that you've got the oil in there, without trying to start the engine, just go ahead and give the pull start a couple of real nice gentle pulls. Make sure the generator's turned off. It shouldn't run anyways because there's no gas in it. But what that does is that moves the cylinder up and down, and it moves the crank in and out of the oil that's in there to see if you might need to add some more. Maybe the crank was turned a certain way to where the connecting rod was down into the oil a little bit, or the dipper was down in there. So this will allow it to move and get out of the way and circulate a little bit of that oil, and then you can add a little more just to make sure that you're still topped off. I'm glad they added this funnel. I'm glad that they gave us this funnel. That's a nice addition. Honestly, I didn't think that they would give that, and I have plenty, like I said myself, but there might be some of you that don't, and this is perfect. This is perfect size, everything. Now I'm cleaning all this up as best as possible. That way, if I have any kind of an oil leak, I know that it wasn't from what I did. Again, there's a little bit of oil that's on these little ramps that they've included or built into the plastic and into that rubber funnel. Nice. It's very nice. So far I'm happy with the quality. All right, one last thing on the oil before we move on to the battery. They're talking about change interval, and this thing says, you know, there's no oil in the unit. Add oil before starting, obviously. Change the oil at least every 100 hours. Failure to follow the required service intervals will result in degraded engine life. That is probably a pretty good number to follow. I mean, this thing isn't very big. It's maybe a 6 or 7 horsepower engine, 8 at the most. So as far as it running for a period of time with that limited oil that's in there, like I said, it's just over half a quart. You got to realize there's a lot of contamination that happens on these smaller engines where the burnt fuel and the gasoline, stuff like that, the raw fuel that didn't get burned, it gets pushed past the rings and it will get into the engine, and it really causes some nasty conditions for those parts to be lubricated under. So what I do is change the oil after the first initial running in the break-in period, whatever they may say, and then every 100 hours after that. That's a pretty good thing. Now, I'm also going to put a link down below for an hour meter. I haven't added that on here yet, but go ahead and pick it up. That way, whenever you've got it, you can see how I've done it on this one, and you can do it yourself. The hour meter is really inexpensive, and it's very easy to add to it. Basically, what happens is when this is running, the hour meter starts counting hours, and that lets you know, because, you know, it's really hard to tell how many hours did I run. You know, sure, I got up at 7, it was hot, I turned on the air maybe at noon, so I started the generator around noon. I ran it from noon to 5, you know, maybe 5 p.m., 5:30, I'm not real sure. You know, that gets really muddy, and you can't remember how many days you've done that. So get an hour meter, and this thing will tell you for you. Again, it's not very expensive. Links down below. All right, so I hope this is a good enough angle for you, but the battery's in this compartment here. It's going to be opposite of the exhaust, obviously, and, you know, again, it's just good engineering that's gone into this. To make it to where you can get to these things relatively easy. As far as I can tell, the battery can stay in there, but I'd like to see the battery. I'd like to see what it looks like. I'd like to get some information off of it. So I'm going to pull that out. It's pretty much like a typical motorcycle battery. It's a sealed lead acid. It's not very heavy, and I wouldn't expect this to have much of a charge or anything like that as far as from the factory. All right, so let's talk about the battery and what it says in their instructions. The product is equipped with an automatic battery charging circuit. The battery will receive charging voltage when the engine is running. The battery will maintain a proper charge if the unit is used on a regular basis, about once every 2 weeks. If it's used less frequently, the battery should be connected to a trickle charger, not included, or a battery maintainer to keep the battery properly charged. If the battery is not able to start the engine, it can be started by manually pulling the engine recoil cord. First of all, I'm doing a 2 amp charge. I know it just said 1.5 amps. I know that this is an old charger and it gives just about 1.9 amps, 1.8 amps. So I'm going to just put that on there just for a short period of time, just to make sure that it's got some oomph in there already. Basically what they're saying is this thing should have a charge when you get it, and as long as you're starting it every couple weeks, that this will maintain the charge that this battery needs to keep this thing running. They also say make sure you have your battery switch off. If you don't have this off, whenever you leave this thing set, it's going to discharge more frequently and faster. All right, well, I'm waiting for this battery to get a charge. I went ahead and unpacked this, which was nothing more than cutting off that plastic. Be careful of the hose. And this is the part that screws directly onto your propane tank and allows you to run this on propane, obviously. What this is here is not so much a mount like I thought initially, but what it is a clip that allows you to store your hose up on the handle when you're not using it. It's not for running, but after the fact. Basically how it mounts is with this pointing away from you and at top, the connection for the propane tank, the clip then faces in this direction. So the push part's here and the grab part's here. Right, so it's on there and you can see again, here's the clip part. And I guess the hose just kind of sneaks in that way. And then you can clip it on your handle and it keeps it stored for you. Again, another thought that somebody put into this. Again, while we're waiting for the battery to charge, I want to go over the rest of the steps. We already did the oil, not a big deal. We're in the process of connecting the battery, which we're waiting for it to charge. Again, you don't necessarily have to do that. What I would do if I was you is connect the battery, make sure red goes to red, black goes to black, and at that point, try to start the engine. If it doesn't start by the electric start, go ahead and pull start it and see if it'll charge the battery for you. If not, you'll have to go through this step. I'm just doing this step ahead of time. Then at that point, you got to make your choice of fuel. Use clean, fresh, unleaded gasoline with a minimum octane rating of 85 and an ethanol content of less than 10% by volume. Now, let me tell you about small engines and ethanol. Small engines hate ethanol. They just hate it. Ethanol is hygroscopic. It likes to draw in moisture. Moisture kills these small engine parts. These engines, the way the carburetors work and the way that the venturis in the carburetor works, everything is so fine and small and delicate. It takes just a little bit of corrosion from water being introduced into the fuel system through this ethanol that's taking moisture out of the air and causing it to make the fuel more stale and varnish up. What happens is it clogs up these carburetors and causes all kinds of problems. I know because I made a living fixing that stuff. It's not a big deal, but it's something that you need to avoid as much as possible. There's a lot of marine places that sell for boats, the fuel for boats, that's called Pure Gas. Now there's an app called Pure Gas. You want to look that up on Android. I don't know about iOS, but Pure Gas will tell you which service stations are in your area that basically dispense pure unleaded gasoline. Now, if you're running your generator exclusively on gas, you might want to look into that. Although they'll run okay on ethanol, that Pure Gas, even though it's more expensive, will keep your fuel lasting longer and also keep everything cleaner. Now in my case, I'm going to try to run on propane as much as possible, so I'm not putting any fuel in it whatsoever. The other thing about fuel, this doesn't require you to mix the gas. It's not a 2-stroke, it's a normal 4-stroke, so it's just regular gas. So basically what to take away from that whole statement, anything to do with the fuel, make sure you put good quality fuel in there it has to be 85 and higher, and the ethanol has to be 10% or lower. Just look at the tank, at the pump, I should say, at the gas station. It'll tell you what it's got going on. Now, as far as the propane, again, you can see the setup here. This will screw directly onto the propane tank. This is the regulator. This regulates how much propane comes out of the tank and at what pressure, and it goes directly into this line, which hooks into the front of the generator, which I'll show you that in a little bit. And of course, then after that, you're just talking about flipping the battery switch to the on position, and then you're selecting the fuel, pull the choke to start. Electric start tells you how to start it. We'll go over that. Do not over choke. Basically what over choking means is turning on the choke and then leaving it run with the choke on. Once it starts, you don't need a choke. That's just to help the fuel get into the cylinder. So once it starts up, you did the job. The choke did its job. Turn it off, let it go. And then as far as the engine to stabilize and warm up, one of those things that you need to pay attention to as far as what it sounds like, and not turning it on immediately, putting it under a load, because it needs to be warm, the oil needs to be thin, the gas needs to be flowing, and that way whenever you flip on your air conditioner and put a load to it, it can handle it. So now that the battery's most likely charged up, it's been on here for about 20 minutes, we'll go ahead and put this in and continue with the rest of the process of getting this thing to run so we can hear it. If you guys aren't familiar with these type of batteries and this type of a connection, motorcycles have been using them for years. What you do is you unscrew this part here with a regular Phillips, and inside is a little nut. There's a nut that's inside there that this screw is working off of. There's a couple different ways of doing this. The reason that this is square like this is because you can put your battery to where your cables are on top like this, or on the front like it was. Now you guys don't have to do this, but I'm going to switch this because I like it, I think, the other way. I think the boots will be protected better the other way. So let me pull out this little nut so you can see what it looks like. That's all it is there. That's what the screw goes into, and I'm going to place that in sideways with the threads facing up, so I can put this in this way and turn it around a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of finagling, of course, and then once you're turning this, it starts gathering the nut up that I turned sideways, and you can see it's now snug. Okay, one more small change. I went ahead and set it up to where not only does the connection happen at the top, but then the cable goes off to the side, because there is plenty of room for this battery to go in there, and it just makes these fit so much nicer over the battery terminals. I'm more concerned about that. So of course now at this point you're just sliding the battery up in there, tucking these cables in at the same time, making sure that they don't get pinched on anything. And you can see everything fits really nice in there. The cable's not up against anything, it's not rubbing up against anything, so we don't have any issues there. And then of course this little bungee cord just flips over like that and snap the bra strap. Alright, so now at this point we can put this cover back on and tighten these screws, and this will be done as far as the battery's concerned. So we're getting really close here. We're ready to hook up some fuel. Now I've just got a standard propane tank. I just went down and got it filled. You can see this is an old beat up one, but it is filled. First thing I want to show you is the propane tank and how it gets connected. Really straightforward. You have an RV, you have propane tanks, this is the way it goes. And you don't have to be a he-man to do it. Now, as far as the propane's concerned, on the generator, this is even easier yet. It covers up the port, so you can't run on gasoline and propane at the same time. And there's a switch that has contact to it whenever it's at this point, basically allowing it to run on gasoline. But again, I have no gas in there. So we're going to switch this indicator over, and that's going to allow this port to be opened up so this quick disconnect can go into here. So you just kind of pull this back, and you can see the collar. Once it's back, once it snaps back in place, it's locked in. Nice. Now turning on the propane. I'm going to turn on the propane at the tank. It's kind of out of camera angle here, and it's ready to go. It's ready to be fed. Now, as far as the generator, you want to turn the battery on. There's a little light that comes on this rocker switch. You can't see it in this daylight, but it's on. Now, you're going to turn the economy mode off. Always start this full load, basically meaning full blast, because if you have an economy mode, the economy mode tries to negotiate a good RPM while still putting out the output that's necessary for the RV or whatever you have plugged in there. But we're not doing that. There is no load. You don't have to worry about any kind of a load. So you want to turn the economy mode off, and then it's just a matter of pushing the electric start. Once the choke is pulled, that's all the way out, and you don't have to be hard about it. Be gentle with it. This is very delicate. You're going to push this, and it only takes, I don't know, just a few seconds. If it doesn't fire up right away, go ahead and give it a break, and then hit the button again to start it. You don't want to be cranking and cranking and cranking. There's an issue if you're continuously doing that. So let's go ahead and do this in 5-second spurts. Now, as soon as this thing starts up, I'll push the choke in, and it'll be running on propane. So let's see what happens here. That's it. It's done. So we'll go ahead and give it a minute here or two for it to get settled in and warmed up. With that generator, it's a very quiet generator. This one here is extremely quiet considering that it's all open chassis, and it's because it has a really good muffler on it. I have an app for my phone, but it's not accurate. It's not a good indication of true decibels, but let's see what we got here. It's basically saying that it's at 64 decibel, 65. Is that accurate? No. But it lets you hear it. It lets you at least get some sort of visual indication of the sound. So let me be quiet here, which is hard for me to do. And that's at full blast. That is without the economy mode on. So let me turn the economy mode on to make it run a little quieter. Now, as far as the economy mode, this is what it sounds like. Now, we got a lot of trucks and traffic out here. You can see there's a truck there, and there's another one that's already gone through. So we're getting a lot of that noise, and of course me talking. Now, how does that rate compare to the other one? Well, let's get something a little bit more set up here for some sort of an experiment. Before I do, let me show you how to shut this thing off. I switched it to the off position, but you can tell it's still running. And you're like, I wonder why it's still running. Well, you can turn the battery off. Now the battery is no longer being charged, but it's still running. So why is that? They don't want any propane trapped in this system when you shut off the generator, because it could cause an issue. So what you want to do is turn off the fuel source and let it run out of propane. That way this is all empty, so whenever you disconnect it here, you don't have a burst of gas that's trapped in the line. All right, so hopefully you can see all this, and this experiment works out pretty good. I'm going to give you a silent moment, which is hard for me, like I said before, so we can get a baseline. Now, there's going to be cars going up and down the street. There's only so much you can account for, and birds chirping. But let's see what this sounds like. So pretty quiet. I mean, it's relatively quiet here. So now let's start this other generator, the old generator, and run it. Now, it only has one idle, one speed. It's full throttle. Whether it's under a load or not, it doesn't make a difference, so I don't need to hook it up to a load. The other generator, the Champion, I don't really have to hook that up to a load either, because either the econo mode's on or it's off. And if it's off, then it's at full throttle. Now under load it'll be a little bit louder whenever the air conditioner's running, and we'll see if it increases from the baseline that we get here. But let's go ahead and try the small one first and hear what kind of decibels we rank at here. Alright, fuel on, choke on, engine on, and go ahead and give it a try. From this distance. Looks like it's touching 70. So 69, 70 looks like what it's going to run at once it gets warmed up. So we got a good baseline with that older style generator. Now, just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and pull start this one too, just because I can. So at full throttle, it's at 68 decibel. This is a generator that puts out 1,000 to 1,500 more watts than the one on the left, yet it is quieter than the one on the left. Now it's jumped up to 69 decibel. Again, this is full throttle. So let's go to economy mode and see what it sounds like. So we're about 64 decibel there. And again, we're 4 foot away. This isn't no 20 feet away. This is 4 feet away. But that decibel meter isn't accurate. It's just kind of close. So I don't really put too much as far as weight on what the decibel rating actually is, just to show you what it's compared to the other one. Alright, so now that we got some idea of sound, let's go ahead and hook this baby up to the RV and run the air conditioner. Let's see what happens then. Okay, so let me give you some idea of what's going on here. First of all, I have not only the RV cord that comes with the RV, but I also have an extension, a 25-foot extension that's connected to it. Now, whenever you add length to the wire, that puts load to the wire also. That puts load into whatever the power source is. So that means the generator is going to have to run slightly harder to power not only the cord that was connected to the RV originally, but the extension cord too. Although it's an RV extension cord, it is a little bit more. Now, we're still not plugged in, so the RV's dead in the water. There's nothing going on, no battery power, nothing. And you can see inside here, it's 94 degrees and 50% humidity, so it's rather warm. Now, the water pump I have turned off, the water heater I have turned off, And the only other thing that we have is this night light that's always plugged in. We'll go ahead and unplug that. And I think the battery indicator thing, I'll leave that on because that's not a big deal. The antenna booster is turned off. The only thing that should come on when I plug it in is the carbon monoxide detector will come on and the radio will come on, just a display. So let's go ahead and set the camera back up and plug this thing in and turn it off of economy mode, and then I'll go in and turn on the air and we'll hear what it sounds like. So now I'm going to go turn on the batteries to see if the charger will make a change in the economy mode. Okay, so it's hunting around a little bit, trying to figure out what to do with the battery charger and the load that's on it. And I'm going to go inside and do what you're not supposed to do, and that is try to start your air conditioner from the economy mode. So the air conditioner, which has not run whatsoever in over 2 weeks' time, or a week's time, going on 2 weeks, I'm going to try to turn that on and see what happens. Okay, so what happened there was inside I turned on the fan, and then I turned on the high fan, but when I went to put it on low cool, the voltage went from 116, 118 in that range that was on the meter inside down to 80, and then it popped the breaker or the reset that's on the generator that's out here. So what I'm going to do is go reset that and start the air conditioner the way you're supposed to, and that is with the generator's economy mode off. Okay, what's interesting is neither one of the breakers are tripped, but it is flashing that it's been overloaded. So let me turn off the generator by shutting off the propane, restarting it, and going through this whole process again. Okay, shutting off the generator, of course at that point the overload light went out. Restarting it without the RV plugged in, it flashed overload a couple of times, and then that light went out. Now I have the economy mode off. Let's go in and start this air conditioner in the worst case scenario. And again, that is with the air conditioner setting with all that oil in the compressor, just sitting for the last couple weeks without running at all. That's the hardest time for this thing to start. Now, I do not have a hard start capacitor on my air conditioner, so if this continues to be a problem with this generator, or if it becomes a problem with the generator, I'll have to put that $10 capacitor on the air conditioner to help this thing out, which isn't a big deal, and you may be wanting to do that anyway. So let me go in and try to turn the air on again. Okay, guess what? Same thing. So not so good. Doesn't look like that it wants to start the air conditioner with the extension cord and from a bone cold fresh start of the AC without a hard start capacitor. Again, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a hard start capacitor on my air conditioner. It's very easy to install, but I was hoping that I could do this without. So what I'm going to do is make sure that it's not the cord, the extension, and go ahead and disconnect this extra 25 feet and run the RV cord directly into here to make sure that extra resistance isn't part of the problem. Okay, so you can see I got it plugged directly into the camper. This is no longer connected. That's the extension cord. Let's see if that's all it needed. And again, I've got the batteries on to help out with the 12 volt side of things. That way, in case we have a little bit of a draw coming from all these 12 volt accessories, which really nothing's on, but you know, it could be. It's showing 13.58 on the voltage of the batteries. I know when those batteries are fully charged, it will read 14.0 something. So not a big deal there. And I'm reading 118 volts here. I would like to see this say 120 to tell you the truth, but let's go ahead and turn on. You got low fan, I should say. Then I'm going to turn it to high fan. Last time I did this, dropped to 117, and here's where we got to be concerned with it. And again, this is a huge draw. This is the worst case scenario. No hard start capacitor, and the oil in the compressor hasn't been running for 2 weeks. So it's not warm, it's not fluid, and it's really hard to start. So let's see what happens to the voltage when I turn this to low cool. Yeah, it popped it again. It popped all the voltage going to the RV. So that is definitely a concern. But since it don't have a hard start capacitor, it doesn't really surprise me. Now, I think at this point what I'm going to do is try to put a little bit of gas in the generator and see if the gas will start it, because gas is more volatile and it puts out more power. So let's go out there and see what happens. Now you can see, as far as disconnecting the gas line, it's just that right there. That's all you have to do. I suggest keeping this boot in good condition so you can put it on to keep debris out of that quick disconnect, like so. And then we'll go ahead and switch it to fuel doing that. And I'm going to put gas in it. Like I said, I wasn't necessarily planning on doing that, but obviously I'm going to be doing that. So let's go ahead and put some gas in there and see what happens. All right, so gasolina went into Daddy Yankee, yo. Went into the generator. I'm going to fire it up on the gasoline, and we're going to try this same experiment all over again. Now that it's on gas, I'm going to pull the choke again, and I'm going to push start. Let's go in and see if we can get this thing started. It's a real shame. That hard start capacitor is in my wish list, and it was going to be ordered, and I thought, nah, I'll wait. So, okay, now we're on low fan. We're on high fan. We're still showing 118. And here we go. And darn it, I have a feeling I know what's going to happen. Yep, it overloaded. So it has nothing to do with the fuel source. It has everything to do with this old unit and it having a hard time starting. So what does this mean? Well, it means that the RV is still 95 degrees inside. And it means that your air conditioner, from what I can tell, this is an old one, it's a 1992, this is the original rooftop air. It needs a hard start capacitor. Now let me explain what a hard start capacitor is. The capacitor is nothing more than a battery that stores AC voltage to help out. And whenever the voltage drops drastically, the capacitor automatically releases that energy that it's stored to help with the air conditioner for it to get past that initial drain. So that's why they call it a hard start capacitor, because it's really hard for your refrigerator, your freezer, or in this case your air conditioner to start, because it's such a huge load, a huge initial load to get it up and running. Once it's up and running though, to maintain it is usually not a big deal. So I'm going to pick up one of those hard start capacitors and we're going to do an installation. Okay, so I ran up to the RV place, it's local here, and I got me a Coleman hard start kit. Now these are all different in different ways and different forms and all kinds of stuff, but basically they all operate the same way. They store energy until the compressor needs to kick on, and they release energy, and then once the compressor kicks on, it runs off of its running capacitor. But this is a starting capacitor. Simple, straightforward instructions. We're going to go ahead and hop up on the roof of the RV and take that shroud off and do this work. Now, it's not hard. Like I said, it's pretty straightforward. The wiring's very simple. There's instructions. Most importantly, just make sure that you have your relay off for your air conditioning so there's no power going up to it. And be careful on your roof, just like you would any other time. So let's go ahead and see if we can get this thing set up and up on the roof in time and get this video finished out in one take. That'd be nice. All right, guys, so we're up on the roof having a glorious view of a glorious day. It's gonna bring some rain. So I gotta hurry up here. 4 washers and 4 cap screws. That's all that's required to pull off that shroud cover. They go on these studs right here. It was in my case, a 7/16 inch socket. Yours might be a little bit different, but essentially it's the same. Then, at that point, you're removing a lot of screws. Screw, screw, screw there. One here, one here. There's a couple over here. There's actually 4 on this side here. And then pretty much the same amount over here. Once those screws are removed, this cover comes off. Now, it looks like I didn't have to remove all of those screws. Well, yeah, because it still needs to lift up. Well, not really. You know, I probably could have left in all those screws and just removed a couple here for this panel right over here. So let's reposition the camera and give you guys a better view. I removed a couple screw here, but then this screw, and that's not a good sign. Okay, what do I mean it's not a good sign? It looks like there's a hard start capacitor already on there. You can see here all the wiring, and one's a run capacitor, and I think the other one's a hard start capacitor. Gosh darn it, maybe the hard start capacitor's bad. I'll have to look here, but I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. Now, even though you've got your circuits turned off down below, you got to be careful because there's energy that's being stored in here that can be released. That's the last thing you want. Yeah, this thing, there's some information on it, but I can't really read it. Gosh darn it. I was hoping not to see this. It's definitely a different setup. So let me regroup here, look at some wiring diagrams, and make sure that I'm doing this correctly. Because the last thing I want to do is tell you guys something wrong. This is what I figured. This is some sort of other overload capacitor or something, but it's not a hard start capacitor because I checked the wiring, and this wiring does not go whatsoever to the compressor. I think this might be for the fan, possibly some sort of a run capacitor for the fan. So what I had to do is pull this cover off, which I'll show you here. I had to pull the cover off the top of the compressor, and you can see on top of the cover it's marked right there. It says CSR. That's start, run, and compressor. Same here, S, there's a C, and there's an R. And if you look, the red wire goes to the S, the white wire goes to the R, and then this C goes to this little black wire. And this is probably some sort of a thermal switch of some kind. But basically, what you've got to do is take your yellow lead of your hard start capacitor and run it to where the white wire, which is connected to the run of the run capacitor and the run section of the compressor, you want to hook it on that little junction. There's 3 little spade terminals there. You just hook it to one of them. Then the red wire, which comes off of this, I don't know, PTCR they call it. It's some sort of a switch, and it's something to do with thermal, and it helps steal energy from the starting capacitor. I don't know all the details of it, but anyways, you take the red wire from it, you run that to the red wire that's going to the run capacitor, and that red wire goes up to the start on the compressor. So basically at this point it's wired the way that it's supposed to. Like I said, this other capacitor in here, it's for something else. It's not for the compressor directly. If you guys know what it is, put it down in the comments. I don't care. But there might be somebody else that's worried about it. I want to make sure that all my connections are good, and then they're not going to come loose, and there's not going to be an issue on down the road with vibration or anything like that. Once it's wired in there, then you have to readjust this bracket. They give you a bracket, they give you a brand new bracket, but this bracket's plenty long enough and is healthy, so I just changed the way that it was mounted, and you screw it all back in to secure these things. So now it's nothing more than putting this cover back on the compressor. All I have to do is just put the nut back on, which was a 7/16 in my case. Again, yours might be different, but I'll just tell you what I used. And then put this back in place and put the screws back in that hold it. Make sure you don't pinch any wires, tuck all the wires up in there, and screw it all back together. I'm glad that I took this cover off because there is some limited movement, and I needed to trace those other wires to see where they went, so I'm glad that it was off. So let's go ahead and get this thing back together. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on and run it and see if it works out okay, especially with the generator. All right, so you can see we're at 118 volts. Again, I wish I was a little bit more, but you know, it is running quite a bit of stuff inside the RV as far as, you know, the charger that doesn't have the batteries connected, but it's going through a converter, an inverter, to change a bunch of stuff into 12 volt power. Now we'll go ahead and this will be the truth. Okay, so we're on the high fan, and here we go. Guess what? It's running! It's running! That little capacitor did the job. That's all there was to it. Nice! Nice! So now I got to go back up and put the cover on and put one screw in. I can't find one screw. I lost it somehow. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, this is fixed. So hard start capacitor. I'll put the link down below. You'll be able to find it at your local RV stores, but you'll probably be able to find it cheaper than what I just paid. It was $30, and I think you can get them for like $20, or some of them you can even get as cheap as $10. So I will, I'll put the link down below for that. But yeah, working good. Just churning right along, and everything's buttoned up here. I love my new ladder. I did a review on that. You guys go look at it. But yeah, here's the top. It's all back in place. It's all snugged down, and I put a little Loctite on those studs up on top. You don't have to, but I just like that extra sense of security. I think what I'll do is run it out of gas. I'm not real happy that I had put gas in it in the first place. And then I'll hook the propane to it, and I'll hook the extension cord to it and see if that extra draw causes a problem. And the voltage is down to 115 in here. I know that's not bad. I just rather see it a little higher. I'd rather it be running around 118, and yeah, it's just me. It's just the way I feel about it. So I wonder if I could run the microwave. Should I? Should I? Should I? Okay, let's look at the voltage when I do it. Okay, here we go. Oh shit, it's running. It's down to 112. Okay, so can I turn on the hot water tank? Can I? Can I? Oh, I popped it. Finally popped it. All right, so that was expected. Did you expect that? I expected that. That's a lot of drain. That's a lot of drain. So let me go do the reset on that thing so we can get the air running in here again. Let me turn it off, and we'll see if it picks up just like it did before. Whenever the generator does overload, I mean, it goes to a quiet mode, and I mean, this is all it does. See the lights flashing. these don't trip, which I'm surprised. I figured that the circuit breaker would trip. It just says overload though. So I'll unplug this. I don't think that makes a difference. I think it's got to be turned off. So we'll turn it off. I'll plug this back in. I'll start it again. And the overload light goes off. And it's running back like it did before. I'm kind of curious if it'll start on econo mode. Man, I'm really abusing this thing, huh? Well, I want to see what it can do. So let's say it's on economy mode. And I'm inside, and I decide that I want to try out my air conditioner. But I don't want to go out and flip the switch. So let's see what happens. 118, high fan, 118, here we go, ready? It caught it. It caught it on economy mode. Well, kiss my grits, so says Flo. I didn't know it was going to do that. Did you know it was going to do that? Not really. So, although it took some extra work, I think that has a lot to do with, number one, this is a 1992 air conditioner that's on this 1992 camper. And, you know, the voltage on that thing, or the watts that it's listed at, you know, some of that might be hyperinflated a little bit. I don't know if there's any kind of adjustment that'll give me a little bit more running voltage as far as where I'm at right now. Like I said, it's at 115 with the air on. But we did run the microwave, so that's good. We've already dropped the 91 degrees in here. I'm going to close the vents, I'm going to close the windows, and we'll see what this thing can get down to while it's running on the gas, and then we'll flip it over to propane with that extension cord and see if everything still goes good. We beat the storms, that's the most important part. It's still running on the gas that I put in. I just kind of put, I don't know, maybe I put a gallon of gas in there, but you can hear how quiet it is. Actually, that sounds extra quiet. Let's hope that this thing didn't pop a breaker or something weird again. No, it's still running. It scares me. It popped the breaker, or popped that reset, that overload so many times, I figured it was overloaded. As far as the voltage at 114, you know, I guess that's okay. I got online and I read a bunch of stuff and they said that's not an issue. I just like to see more. Well, I was disappointed and then I was elated. And now I had to do a little bit more work and it cost me about $30 extra to do what I did. But, you know, I'm happy. That is going to allow us to boondock. I had two concerns and one of them has not yet been addressed yet. One was, will it run on propane and will it start the air conditioner on propane? Well, I haven't got to do that yet because I want to run the gas out of it. I guess I could switch it over if I wanted, you know, to do that right now and try it just to get that out of the way, which I might. And the second thing was, would it work with an extension cord of any kind? Because what I plan on doing is most likely putting this generator in the back of the truck and then making a cord to where I can plug it into the front of the RV. And that cord will run to the back, and then I'll have to flip a switch manually. We'll have to see, but let's go ahead and try this thing out on propane. I've got it set up now is with the extension cord on propane on econo mode with the air off and the fan running in the back room on high, which isn't a very big draw, and the battery charger on. I went ahead and turned on the air and it started it. It started it and it's running it. It jumped out of econo mode for a second and then it's below what full-blown, you know, running would be. But let me show you what it looks like and what it sounds like. So it's running just fine. It's running on propane and it's on econo mode. So these RPMs are a little bit lower than what it would be if it was on full blast. I'm at 114 volts inside. Everything's okay. Now as far as heat, let me tell you, that exhaust heat is very high. but there's also a lot of hot air that's blowing out of this too that I didn't even know about. That's going to be a little tricky for me to try to figure out a way to mount that thing. I think I might have an issue with that. But you can see we're at 82 degrees, so it's dropped at 8 degrees, and that was with me screwing around with it. And yeah, the air's nice and cold. And I've screwed around and I've turned on the microwave and stuff like that. Showed Heidi that it would run the microwave and that fan and the air conditioner, and it did. So overall, I don't know. How do I feel about this? All right, so I guess I feel pretty good about it. Because the RV is so old, I know that's an issue. A lot of the newer RVs, this is not going to be a concern. So if you want to buy this generator, it's going to run your air conditioner most likely. Just to give you an example, there's a lot of people that have this exact same generator and they're running their 15,000 BTU, but it's a newer one. Of course, being this is 1992, this thing's old and it's seen its day. I'm not going to replace the rooftop air though, as long as it works, and this generator, as long as it supplies the energy that's needed. But I did want to do an upgrade if necessary to make this work, which I did, which you guys saw. So what am I telling you? I'm telling you to make a decision on your own. I like this generator. I like the price point. Right now as it stands, you can get it for $999. Again, the link's down below. I'll also put the link for the hard start capacitor that I used for this one. I'll also give you a link for a hard start capacitor that, if was available, I would have got in place of this one because I think it's a little bit better by design. Of course, the link will be down below. That's called a SUPCO. It's an SUPCO. SPPT6, I think, is the number. So if you're looking at getting one and you don't want to do the instructions like I showed you, you can get this other one that I've got a link down below, and it'll be the same. As far as accessories for the generator, well, I know one thing. I would like to be able to run it if it's raining out. And I know another thing. I'd like to be able to mount it. Now, I showed you my concern with the way the hot air comes blowing out of that thing. I'm going to have to do something about that. I'm going to have to find a way to ventilate that if I try to enclose it into anything. That might be a bit of an issue. I'm not 100% sure yet. We'll have to see how it all unfolds. I have ideas on how to get it done, but again, those are not necessarily what I'm going to do. You know, we may run into a situation that I might not need to do that. I might just be able to open up the back of the truck and fire it up and let it vent out, and be able to plug the cord into the RV and keep it cool while we're stopped at a Walmart, for example. Or maybe we'll just deal with running off the batteries and using fans inside of the RV just to get us by overnight. Because even at 90 degrees, as long as we have a fan blowing on us, you know, that's hot air blowing on you. But, you know, it's better than nothing. And that's what we really had whenever we went to Tennessee our last trip. If you guys haven't had a chance to check that video out, go ahead and do so. But that's going to close it out for our video. And as always, we hope to see you out there. Bye.